Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of our high-level masterclass. These are really, really cool sessions that we do with industry experts. And today I have Adam McChesney. Adam and I have known each other for quite some time. I've seen his growth in the digital marketing community, met him in person and several times. He was part of some of the biggest franchises in the digital world. And Adam and I, we're going to talk about building 7 steps to a successful business, specifically using authoritative personal branding and content. And Adam has done really well with his agency launch, and he's got multiple awards and things like that, working and also working very closely with the high level family now. Adam, thanks for saying yes to a masterclass and being, willing to give to our community and teaching them a couple of cool things here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paulson. It's been a pleasure watching the Go High Level community continue to grow and grow, and to be able to come on here today and talk about one of my favorite things, personal branding. It's an honor for sure.
Awesome. So before we go any further, I know you have some slides and stuff like that, and some things that you may want to show to just kind of keep our conversation structured and organized. But before we go any further, tell us your story in the digital world. How did you become really a digital citizen?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2018, I was working in medical device sales, and I had multiple jobs in that specific industry. And I was working for a company called ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with CPAP equipment, the device, the masks, I was selling all of that stuff, and I was getting super burnt out just a couple of years in. And so I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what I was actually going to do to run my own business. And so I was sitting in a hotel room in 2018. I typed in how to make money online while I was traveling for work. And I got targeted by an ad on Facebook that had this massive, shiny apartment complex because I was also looking up real estate investment as a particular way to become an entrepreneur. And it basically said, hey, wouldn't you like to own this property without having to actually own the property with physical real estate? And so it ended up being a course around digital marketing for rank and rent. So I bought that course in 2018. From 2018 to 2020, I did it on the side. I built 200 websites, just did a lot of different stuff with website design and SEO. Then I learned paid ads, and I went full time in the midst of the pandemic. And so I started out doing everything on my own for about 9 months, became a franchisee of Height Digital, which is where I was at previously, then became a partner at All of Height, and have since now focused just on Builders of Authority, which is where we help people become the authorities, a lot of agency owners, just typical entrepreneurs in their niche to their ideal client using personal branding.
I love that. So throughout your journey, obviously the pillar of the lighthouse of the business is the face of the person that's part of that business. I mean, whether you like it or not, maybe you don't put yourself out there if you're watching this. And this may get a little uncomfortable for those of you that may not want to build that content. And we have some cool ideas of how to kind of get around that. But at the end of the day, an identity has to be attached to a business, whether that's through a person or a brand or product, services, it doesn't matter. Adam, help us understand your philosophy of these 7 steps that you're talking about to essentially $1 million business that you're saying.
Yeah, and what you had just mentioned is a really, really good way to think about it, is there's always got to be an identity tied to something. And at the end of the day, I think what I learned from really 2018 up to 2020, and why I decided to go all in on personal branding for my agency and grow as fast as I did, was due to personal branding. But we live in this world where social media kind of takes away a lot of times the person to person interaction, and especially coupled with COVID, we lost a lot of that stuff. And so people kind of got back to the basics from a business to business buying standpoint, is they wanted to do business with people that they knew, they liked, and they trusted, because people are people at the end of the day. And especially in the digital marketing space, where there's hundreds of thousands of options for a business, for example, to be able to go select who they're going to do stuff with, being able to break down those walls and just connect with other people through your personal brand and your personal profiles was really the game changer for me, and has continued to be over the last couple of years.
I love that. So if you're watching this masterclass, the last thing I want to do is make you feel like you're going to come into a masterclass, hear a few ideas, and go make $1 million business. So don't assume that's reality. Most people that try this digital marketing world and business struggle majority of the time. So we want to make sure you don't feel like we're making a revenue claim and things like that. And plus, my legal team will be very happy that I said that. But in reality, a lot of these, public figures, if I may, in the world of digital marketing, make it sound like it's very easy. I mean, they make it sound like, hey, here's a 997 course. Next thing you know, there's going to be a cash sheet that's just going to be printing out some paper notes out there. But Adam, help us understand these 7 steps you're talking about from your practical experience. What's the first step?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step with all of this stuff is really truly identifying who your ideal client is. So like if you don't know who your ideal client is, you're essentially marketing to no one. And so once you truly understand and know who your ideal client is, it makes everything with personal branding that much clearer and makes your personal brand that much better. And so I'll walk through an exercise that I take people through inside of our Builders of Authority community to help you truly understand who that client is if you don't already know that. The second thing as we talk about is the consistency behind social media posting. So as you mentioned, is like you're not just going to start doing this stuff and then print $1 million. It took me 15 months to go from 0 to 7 figures, but consistency, I never really missed a day in posting. And most days I was posting twice a day on multiple platforms. So that's a really key aspect behind it. The third step is providing value first and selling second. So we live in this world where everybody thinks I just need to post and you're going to buy from me. If you're not providing value and making your free stuff so good, then nobody is going to usually buy your stuff. Number four is positioning yourself differently from the competition. So as I mentioned, there's hundreds of thousands of options when it comes to working with digital marketing agencies and SaaS entrepreneurs. Why would someone buy from you versus buying from someone else unless you were just cheaper? Well, the other way is because you've built this authority. You have so many people that are tagging you, recommending you, and word of mouth starts to go. But then you are looked at as a subject matter expert, which leads into step number 5, which is continuing to build that know, like, and trust. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And when they know who you are outside of just what you do for business, with personal branding, they're a lot more likely to know, like, and trust you. And when you don't spam, which is step number 6, which a lot of marketers are notorious for doing. I know I took a bunch of courses that taught me how to just go do cold DMs, run some random ads and do stuff. Well, nobody bought from me because I didn't have the know, like, and trust, and I was spamming people. And then the 7th part, which is really where all of this stuff ties together with Go High Level, is automating the sales process. So if you think of where you're at right now versus trying to go to maybe 7 figures or multiple 7 figures, you have to be able to control how you're getting content out there, but also how to automate the entire process. When you have more leads coming in, it makes it a little bit more harder, especially if you don't have a sales team, which I didn't have a sales team till I did about $1.75 million back in 2022. It makes it very hard to go continue to grow the agency if you don't have Go High Level behind it, following up with those leads and reminding you of what you need to do, when you need to do it, and going it from there.
I love this. So as you're watching this live, I want you to type in hashtag live and let us know that you're part of this, this class. Adam talked about 7 things, very quickly that was built from years of a lot of trials and tribulations and tears. And I know that because I've been an agency owner myself in the past, and personal branding was one of the biggest pillars I personally even used in multiple industries. Now, Adam, where do people make the mistake of personal branding? I know I've seen people just throw up a bunch of stuff on social without a real cut, really diamond cut, messaging, and we're not addressing someone. Like, can you help us understand what that first couple of steps look like? I know you said post, but like, what is the plan around it? What does the execution look like?
Yeah, so I'll say a lot of people don't get started because they overthink the process. They overthink it has to be perfect. They overthink, oh my gosh, if I make this post, what am I going to get back in return? Because we live in this world where people think they need instant gratification. I make this post, I invest this dollar, I expect this back. or it's not worth it. So the long game and playing that is really, really important here. So don't overthink it, play the long game. And then third is just understand that your content today is going to be way better in the future than it is right now. But if you don't get started, if you don't play the long game and you overthink everything, you are going to keep yourself from reaching that next level of potential. And so if you would have told me like this time last year that I'd be no longer involved at the agency that I was at doing all of those things and focused on builders of authority, I would have told you were probably crazy. But things happen. And I now have this opportunity because I started building my personal brand, and people were like, Adam, can you finally just teach us with a course, with a mastermind, with one-to-one coaching, how to become the authority? But it was that business model that was created years and years ago that I didn't even know I was creating a business or even had something to be able to offer people. But now we throw live events. We've done incredible stuff and doing stuff with Go High Level as well as some other complementary type of services for the agency space. And if you would have told me that would have happened this time last year, again, I just wouldn't have believed it. So the doors that get unlocked with personal branding, it's really tough to be able to say what the future is going to hold. But if you don't get started at all, you're never going to know what if.
Yeah, it reminds me of how hard it is to measure the power of personal branding. But you said something very keen here. It's just the doors that you unlock with personal branding is, unbelievable. You become the first person in people's thoughts and first person as a candidate for a certain thing. Or if you sell on stage or do one-to-many webinars, like it just becomes a natural process for people to think about Adam McChesney on a certain item. Or maybe like my old agency was around dentistry. So everything was like Paulson was the dental guy, he's the Invisalign guy. My identity just started getting connected to that attachment of personal branding and that content. Adam, can you help us understand, how you leverage personal branding to start building the business? Like putting the content out there is great. It sounds like you have to have consistency, obviously, and you create a couple of cool doors, but help us understand how to build the digital marketing agency with personal branding.
Yeah, so I kind of go on the foundation that like I want people to know that Adam is just a entrepreneur that happens to do X, Y, and Z. So I don't want them to look at like, oh my gosh, Adam is the digital marketer or is a digital marketer, because usually it's not like business owners and especially ideal clients are just like, oh my gosh, I'm really hoping Adam is posting today about a case study with a fake heat map with a fake report that he did for one client one time 5 years ago, right? And so I had to switch my methodology and my thinking around. I want to connect to my ideal client. And so when I was growing the agency and running the agency, like my ideal client was a home service or contracting business. They had been in business for at least 3 years. They were doing over $1 million in revenue. They had a CRM that was already in place. So as we grew the business, it didn't implode because they didn't have processes and systems and a way to track and sell more from that. And then the last one was that somebody other than the owner actually managed the sales process. So I didn't want to work with like the solopreneur that as we sent more leads in, he was going to have to shut off marketing because we did too good of a job potentially, right? Like that is something that has happened and I was sick and tired of dealing with that. But at the end of that, right, the person behind that business was just a business owner. A lot of times they were a husband or a wife or a mother or a father or whatever it ended up being. And I wanted them to know who Adam was. So from a very early standpoint, I just started sharing my personal journey, like my personal journey, like even separate from being an entrepreneur. And then I started talking about becoming an entrepreneur. And then when I shared stuff digital marketing related, it was usually trying to incorporate and tell a story. I wasn't showing random stuff or showing like money being made. I was just saying like, hey, here's Paulson. He came and worked with us and he came and worked with us for 6 months after having this experience with a previous agency. Here's where things were at. Here's where their things are at now. And here's what he's working on. And then here's a video testimonial or a link to his Google review. So with everything, it's not always about just showing up and telling people why you're the best, because if you're showing up and telling people why you're the best, or you're a 7 or 8 figure, whatever, you are going to get attraction from your non-ideal clients. Meaning other agency owners might think that that's really, really awesome or incredible. But like the people that are actually going to be able to buy from you to grow your agency, you're going to struggle to do that. So just really making sure your content is actually talking to and not through that home service business or contractor or the dentist in your particular example. And so that's the approach I took, and it paid off really well.
I love that. Can you help us understand the type of products and services you had in your agency so then we can also connect the dots on, okay, personal branding, check. Here's what type of traffic it usually leads to. Maybe it's consulting, maybe it's bigger packages, higher ticket packages, 1 year deals, annual plans. Like, well, help us understand how, your agency was kind of structured.
Yeah, so we were doing website design, search engine optimization, local and national, Google ads, and then Facebook ads. So that was kind of like the primary suite of services. And then obviously we were doing stuff with Go HighLevel as well. But we had at our largest point, so when I was doing everything on my own, like I was building all the websites, doing all the SEO, doing all that stuff, we capped out at about 30 clients. And then we got as high as about 150. And so those were hosting clients. We did do some one-off hosting all the way up to that. But personal branding, I think my biggest month, I brought on 22 new retainer clients in one single month. And that was November of 2022. So that was the significance behind that. So, like, literally less than 2 years, or right around 2 years from starting personal branding to 2 years later, I literally brought on more clients almost in 1 month than I had previously those 2 years before in total.
Yeah, and from what I know, this was not a SaaS agency, right? This was a
No, typical
traditional
digital.
agency, and I'm assuming the ranges of your price are at least $2,000 to $3,000 or more a month.
Yeah. Yeah. So we peaked at about $200,000. Like I think we 1 month we did like 205, but around like 150 was kind of the sweet spot for almost like honestly 18 straight months. And then about 175 of that 200 was monthly recurring revenue. So obviously we're doing some like one-off projects with websites and things like that. But I got really, really good at being known as like the SEO and the ads guy when it came to my personal brand for home service businesses and contractors.
I love it. Now, help us understand the power of personal branding because you transitioned from different businesses and different brands, and I know the Height family, we work closely with them as well, and you're a part of that family. There are other businesses that you built, but I feel like the personal branding allowed you to just pivot as quick as you needed to or make changes as you needed to. And it's kind of like a insurance in a way for business entrepreneurship in general. Do you feel that way or am I, help us understand your thoughts on that?
1000%. And so the personal brand is something you're going to take with you forever. And so a lot of people ask me like, "Hey Adam, what is a personal brand?" And I don't have a personal brand. I hear that all the time. And what I tell people is whether you know it or not, you have a personal brand. A personal brand is what other people think about you when you're not in the room. And that can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, or it can be a completely indifferent thing. Like, I don't know a whole lot about Adam, right? But when people use a personal brand to do better for their business, right? Like most of the time now, the conversation is Adam is X, Y, and Z, but it's always usually tying in a business or businesses. So that's the benefit when you have a very good personal brand or strong or a memorable one, your business, other people are talking about it and promoting it. And then I go doing the next thing. And now everybody was talking about what I was doing at Height. Now everybody's talking about what I'm doing at Builders of Authority. They're talking about my in-person events. They're talking about my one-to-one coaching and consulting. They're talking about what I do in our group mastermind. And it's like the coolest thing ever. And it's free advertising, right? But I'm just consistently showing up time and time again, which leads to that. But this year alone, like people, I literally have a photo booth company here in St. Louis that gave me equity in his company because he's like, not only do you know digital marketing stuff, but you have such a strong brand here in St. Louis as well. So these opportunities that have presented themselves, you wouldn't be able to get necessarily without having that personal brand.
So, Adam, help us understand the sales temperature. You have obviously cold, warm, and hot leads. To me, the one thing I remember with, very heavy personal branding is the temperature of your leads and opportunities slightly change from super cold to warm as they just come inbound, essentially.
Yeah.
How has personal branding affected sales and sales processes for you?
Yeah. Well, so like everybody thought that I was just some sales guru. Like they were literally like, Adam must have these very like cheesy sales tactics, and he must just be like a high ticket closer. Cause I talk with a lot of people that they have these very, very like massively high ticket stuff. And they're like, Adam, how's your strategy for this? How's your strategy for that? And I'm like, I don't have one. Like, I don't have one to the level that they have of like, well, if you buy here on the call right now, we're going to knock 50% off of the $20,000 package. It was like, no, this is my price and this isn't my price. Right. So I will say personal branding helped really, really solidify the deal before it was a deal. But what most people also don't know about me is they think I'm a sales guy, but they don't realize that I'm actually a really, really good SEO guy and digital marketing guy. So I put so much value like with someone before I'm having a conversation. Where most people go wrong is they either don't have a personal brand, or if they do, they don't show their authority to the client before they hop on that call. So I would do a super in-depth audit. I would put together a 4 to 5 minute Loom video saying, hey, here's where your website's at right now. Here's where your SEO's at. Oh, hey, you want to go see another auto glass company that we've worked with, or a roofing company that we worked with? Here's what we've done. And oh, here's leads that are literally coming in today, which made that call where I was actually doing a sales call that much more productive, because not only did I have the personal brand and the authority, but I showed them how I knew more about their business in digital marketing than they knew about it. And so that's where people go wrong. So it made the sale that much easier. And I think so often people are like, oh, I got all these appointments. And it's almost like they feel as if they deserve the sale, but they haven't done that like audit. They haven't taken the personal brand and really shown the authority.
I love that you just, differentiated authority versus brand,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of people assume credibility, they assume respect, they assume competency as they go into a conversation with the prospect. And the prospect is they just know that you're like famous or well liked, but not sure whether you can do the job that's required in marketing, right?
Yeah.
Help us understand your team members and how they took on and embraced the idea of branding in general as well.
Yeah, well, so that was like super interesting because right when I got to about like $1 million, that's when I was still like pretty heavily involved in the agency. From like hey, I'd bring a client on, I would also do the onboarding call, and then I'd probably be on the first couple of meetings, and then like client calls me, right? And then they know specifically like or I know specifically like what's going on in the account. And then we got to like 1.5. And then 2022 was our big year where we were bringing on like a ridiculous amount of clients. We were bringing on new team members. I brought on my first salesperson, and they had to understand like the differentiation of what they were accustomed to and used to, because most of the people on my team had all worked at other agencies or worked behind the scenes at the agency that we were at. And so I had to help them understand like, hey, there's not more on the line when you're doing it without personal branding. It's just the same. But people literally would come and buy our stuff and sign up because of Adam, not because of the agency. And so I had to train my team. It was like, hey, my name is on the line. My name would be on the line regardless because it's my company, but it does take a different level of precedence, because when people are having a good experience, they're going to go tell everybody. But if people aren't having a good experience either, they're also going to tell people. So I had to get out in front of that, of just being like, hey, if I need to be involved, if something is going on, don't hide it from me. Just know that we need to bring this to the forefront, because I'm going to hear about it, whether you all tell me or not. Like it's going to get back to me. So the biggest struggle, honestly, that I had was it was a personal battle as well as a coaching opportunity with my team of like, hey, there's a lot more on the line here. And I needed to figure out how to remove myself effectively from, hey, I'm selling this client to, hey, now I'm with hundreds and hundreds of clients over the period of a couple of years. I don't know everything that's going on. And that was a huge transition, but the team stepped up extremely well. I think really bringing on someone to do sales was one of the harder parts, but it was also one of the most fruitful parts because I was just the personality at the top, right, with the brand. And then I didn't have to go and do all the hard part of the selling that I had done for the last couple of years prior to that.
I love that. So, what else do we need to really know about personal branding? I know there's a lot of talk around AI. I know the high level component you integrate really well with. You have, couple of solutions there. And
Yeah.
for those of you that are watching this masterclass, by the way, I think Adam is going to provide a snapshot if you are jumping into a trial. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the call, just because I'm not in my sales mode. I'm just inquisitive right now. But Adam, help us understand how high level plays a role for your business and what does that complement on personal branding or social content or paid ads or whatnot? Like, help us understand how you implement high level.
Yeah, so I think like we're implementing it in a couple of different ways, but these are some of the same ways that we were doing literally as I was running the agency as well. So the sales pipeline aspect of this, if you have multiple tiers of offers, if you struggle with follow-up, which I know like coming from medical device sales, it was ingrained in me in order to do that. But once I wore the hat as a sales rep, once I wore the hat of the CEO in an agency, I really struggled with going back and doing all the automations and the follow-ups and managing of the pipelines. So that is absolutely crucial. But one of the biggest things is now for like our mastermind at Builders of Authority, like we've connected everything from Stripe into Go High Level. And it's literally like people, I'll do a webinar or anything like that. And then sales are literally just coming in because we promote the link to that. And before it would always be like, oh my gosh, I got to get the invoice out. I got to do all this other stuff. And now, literally, like we had one last night at the time of this recording where I just woke up to somebody joining our mastermind and community because we built out the funnel and Go High Level. It's connected to Stripe. And the best part is now we've done all the automations where the onboarding call is literally scheduled for next week. They've already been added to all the calendar invites, and we're starting to rebuild out like the community aspect inside of that because we've just been running with our heads cut off on a Facebook group. So we are now, I think, integrating every single time High Level has something new. We're now seeing how can we deliver a better experience for our community and for our clients. And this was a lot of the same stuff that we were doing before. But from a personal branding standpoint, right? Just being able to say, hey, if I get 20 leads, like if I'm on somebody else's podcast, right? And I'm able to get 20 leads because 20 people that were ideal clients listen to that podcast. They now come in the CRM in the system. They're now integrated into all of the follow-ups. You can start to put them in email sequences. You can get them the information they need about your stuff versus having to go hand by hand and be able to do it. So that's like kind of the coolest thing. But the thing that's actually generated us the two biggest dollar amounts worth of money this year, one of which is going to be the thing I'm going to share here at the end with the snapshot. The first one is a course. So if you're an agency owner and you haven't put together a course, that was something I just put together at the beginning of this year, and now I give it away for free. So it's built on High Level. I'm on every freaking podcast now. I'm doing all that stuff, and I'm literally sharing that. And it's like I used to struggle to get leads off of podcasts. I used to struggle to get leads when I was doing webinars because it's like, hey, here's a PDF or connect with me. Now people are like, oh, there's a course. I'm in. I'm in. So like after I do that every single time or that goes live, we're now getting access to that. So we've gotten over, I think, close to 400 leads in the last couple of months from a free course that we've put together. So I'd recommend like whatever you want to put together for your ideal clients, having a course, some things that what if you do SEO or you do PPC or you do SaaS or whatever it is that you do, give them some free and easy nuggets to be able to go start to implement some of these things, Most of the time, they're going to realize it's way too difficult to do on their own and they're going to hire you anyway, but it helps you get solidified as that subject matter expert. But the other thing is I started throwing events this year in person. And so we threw two events in person this year. We did over $30,000 in sales and we configured it all in HighLevel. So that's going to be the snapshot that I'll actually be sharing with everybody here at the end. And we can kind of chat a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But I started throwing in-person events and my personal brand took on a completely different level. People are like, oh my gosh, I want to sponsor your event. I want to speak at your event. I'm now getting asked to go to other people's events and speak and do all these different things because people are like, wow, you threw your own event. There was, 50 people at one and 70 people at the other. And it helped us sell more into our back end offer. And it also got some people to sign up through our affiliate link with Go HighLevel and some of the other partners that we have. But throwing events and doing all that stuff right now is one of the more difficult things that I see people struggle with. But like I was so worried, how am I going to set the funnel up? How am I going to connect striping? And I just spent a weekend like really diving in to GHL. This is back in January and we launched it and it's just been the same thing we've used over and over again. So whether you're doing virtual events or you're doing in-person events, whatever it might be, like the solidification of that for your personal brand is going to be massive and Go HighLevel can take care of everything.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a lot of agency owners do really well with personal branding, and they just only connect the direct call to action to their agency services or SaaS
Yep.
services, right? They're not capturing an audience in between, right? And I think what you described is using education as the bridge to develop the audience, because when you do that, the call to actions will come through. They will take on deals and products and services, maybe not now, but later if you play the long-term game. So, and this is something we've figured out as well here at HighLevel is education allows us to create a buzz noise that we can control, right? Like when you have a course, you decide what's being taught and what is being talked about your product or what is being talked about with your services. Can you help us understand what this course feels like? What does it, what does it look like? Is it about, it's not a promotional course about you as a person, but it's more about what they can do. It's almost like a do-it-yourself course for them to just, you're like providing a resource for them to function without you, right?
Yeah. So this is actually be kind of funny how I'm tying this all together. But so we had a free PDF that we put together for my birthday last year. So nearly a year ago, it was a 7-step to $1 million business with personal branding. So we had that as the PDF. And then that got downloaded and asked about and commented on. So if you go to my Facebook page right now, you'll see it's pinned on my Facebook page. It's got over 500 comments now. And so we started to use that as kind of just a lead generator, just to test the waters of like, would Builders of Authority, which is kind of the company behind the 7-step and personal branding stuff, does it actually have legs? Are people interested? At the time, I didn't believe so. And then all those people were literally asking for the PDF. So I said, hey, I need to do something with this. So then we launched with a webinar back in November of last year, going into December. And we turned that into a 7-step with $1 million business webinar. Then we launched the course in January. Now I'm actually writing a book on 7. So I'm building off that foundational thing like X with X. And all it is in that course is it's giving them like tactics and strategies. Like, hey, here's how you really understand like the Facebook algorithm, for example. Here's why you need to post twice a day. So it's teaching them the 7 steps, but it's expanding on it a little bit further. And then the book will be even further from that. So that is a good, just even over the last 12 months, little good timeline and background information for everybody listening that, oh, wow, like you can take a concept or an idea and turn it into all of these other things. And people just keep getting more and more information, but it's the same messaging. One of the biggest issues that agency owners and marketers struggle with in general is it's like 1 minute it's this, the next minute it's that. And so the messaging isn't consistent, where I've just been continuing really for the last couple of years, but over the last 12 months, just talking about this. And it's made everything else easier and it's opened up so many doors.
Help us understand the execution behind it. So like you start with the PDF, then you have a course, then I assume you have the community that you're building out. Then now you're working on the book, and I assume the next is going to be a documentary or some kind on a stage, right?
Yeah.
But there is I mean, you're going from good to great, like that book, right? You're going from, just small little 1% here and there, 5% work here and there, and you're building and building and creating a momentum to a point where at the end of the year, you look up, it's like, man, I've got a plethora of resources, and it naturally positions you as the authority. Help us understand how someone that's brand new with no authority at all or no social platforms yet, like where do they start?
Yeah. So I think just getting started with the consistency behind whatever it is that you're willing to commit to when it comes to social media stuff. So maybe you've been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time. Hey, I'm finally going to launch a podcast. I'm going to do a YouTube channel, especially if you're, an affiliate in promoting Go High Level stuff. Like just show people how you're using Go High Level. Show people how you're doing X, Y, and Z. Give it away for free, right? And then when it comes to like that journey that we just walked through, so I did that free PDF for my birthday in September of last year. In October, I was building out the back end stuff on Go High Level. So I decided, hey, I'm going to build this community. Here's kind of what the community looks like and all those different things. And then I solidified it all in November. So I did a launch on a webinar and promoted the heck out of it using all of the different features and tools and automations and all of those things. And so at that point, we had over 300 people register for a webinar. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, the week after Thanksgiving, Tuesday evening. And we had over 100 people literally attend the event at any given time. So it was like always 100 plus, which was just insane. At the end of that free webinar, I launched the community. So that community ended up officially going out in December. And so we had a group program, which we still have, as well as one-to-one coaching. We ended up launching with about 10 members in December, and now we're a little over 50. But in that time, we've thrown 2 in-person events. So we did Builders of Authority live. So kind of keeping the theme with everything. We announced that we launched the course as well. And then we announced that we're doing the book about like 4 or 5 weeks ago. So I'm currently working on that. So all of it is just that like trajectory of what can we do next that plays into the account of where we're trying to go with Builders of Authority, with personal branding. But it's not like we're now teaching something completely different. It's just how do we expand on this further? How do we meet more people where they're at? So one of the things that I do believe as far as what could come down the pipeline is right now, it's basically personal branding focused, super generalized. I do see us at some point going and kind of how they do the whatever the dummy books are. So like dummies, digital marketing for dummies, accounting for dummy. Like I do see us going down that route because it will help, I think, connect with our audience even further about, oh, this is how it would pertain to X, Y, and Z. Whereas right now in our community, we have digital marketers, we have consultants, we have coaches, we have contractors and a variety of different stuff, which has been amazing. And also has a lot of amazing things for our community members that we're all not just in the same industry, but I could see us doing something, whether it's a course, event, anything like that.
I love that. So, Adam, from a content strategy and an overarching like plan standpoint, should we build assets towards our ICP or should we keep it generalized? So, let's say I'm building an agency for contractors. Should my content be geared towards the contractors, or should I keep it as if like, oh, let me just relate to all entrepreneurs in all walks of life. Like I think that's one of the bigger struggles when it comes to personal branding people
Yeah.
deal with.
So I've done both. And obviously where I'm at right now, it's not that we're super niche down. We're kind of a little bit all over the place. If I could go back and start literally from day one, I would get super niche down with everything that I was doing from personal branding because those algorithms, especially the ones that are more like education based. So I look at like YouTube and even TikTok now is all of that stuff really grows when you're very, very niche down. So it's like, hey, if you're a roofing company doing $1 to $3 million, here's the 3 things you need to be doing right now when it comes to digital marketing versus, hey, here's the 3 things you need to be doing right now for digital marketing. Those are two completely different things, right? But so that's kind of where I've been, and I've played in that sandbox. So what I will say is I had to work really, really hard with my personal branding, almost too hard at times in order to get to where I was at without being so niche down. Because some people are like, oh, Adam has a bunch of SEO and digital marketing clients for auto glass because I also own an auto glass company. And then they're like, he also has owned a landscape design company and he also has a Christmas light. Like, so I was all over the place. But then what that did is it sparked conversation, but I was never going to be the digital marketing guy for a industry. It was always like he was pretty freaking good. And when it came to service-based businesses, but I had to explain like, hey, auto glass SEO is not that different from Christmas light SEO. So I did have to go a little bit further to just like clarify that. But if you want to be looked at as an authority of just like holistically for an industry, for a niche, my recommendation would be to niche down with your content.
I love it. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up here and just kind of give everyone a great idea on how to leverage personal branding and authoritative content. Adam, I know you as a really good SEO guy in this community of digital marketers. Help us understand the way to connect personal branding and SEO. Like what advantage did you have that I can't think of? Because I'm not an SEO guy. I'm a Facebook ads guy back in the day.
Yeah. So I think people, especially like really, really good SEO people, overcomplicate how to connect SEO back to their ideal client. And so when that happens is you make the entire sales process very, very difficult. So I did have like I managed a $25 million a year medical device territory. I did have a very different background than most people that are in SEO. I knew that I had to make X number of calls and do X number of proposals in order to get X number of deals. And so that's how my mind worked. So I translated what worked for me in medical device sales into digital marketing. And that was making medical device sales not about the actual products, but about the solutions and how to connect with my ideal client. And so I've always solution sold, not product or service sold. And so I think from an SEO standpoint, I connected that in with personal branding by doing a bunch of audits, by doing like I would do, and I've gotten away from it to be frank with you, but I would do at least one live video every single week. I did that for over a year. And so I would just hop on and I would randomly be like, hey, here's a new client that we're working with. Here's what we saw before we took them on. Here's what we're going to do in order to fix that. And then I would basically be like, hey, here's what we're doing for my companies as well. So I will say that one of the things, like if I were to go back to the beginning and tell somebody like, hey, here's how you grow an agency and you really get authority is I still own an auto glass company of one of those original 200 websites that we were talking about in the beginning. I built that website back in 2018, going into 2019. We launched the company in 2021. And although like in 2021, I lost 60 grand on that company because we never ran an auto glass company before. We made every freaking mistake in the book. Now it's finally just starting to make some good money and things like that. But it was such a good learning lesson. And it was also a conversation piece to be able to be like, hey, we launched like, if you're going to go work with a marketing agency, are you going to go work with one of the hundreds of thousands of potential marketers or agencies out there that have never ran an actual service-based business? Or the one that a service-based business literally started from a simple website with SEO and Google Business Profile posting? That's very hard to like overcome. Other marketers can't really have that. And so we did the same thing with landscape design. And so I was really good at telling the story of how we got started. And I've continued to tell that story over and over and over again. But most people, one, haven't done what I've done in that standpoint. They haven't gone and started a company from digital marketing. And to the ones that have, they just don't share the story behind it. So I would just say is as an SEO person or a face, whatever it is, right? Tell the story of how you're doing what you're doing and let your clients help you as well. Like I had so many champions online and still do, like people still think I'm running a massive agency. Hey, people, because it's really hard for people to forget. And I haven't necessarily made like a public announcement, obviously, if you will. But once that champion mindset has gone from all of those people, they will look out for you anytime one of their friends or anyone that they know is looking for digital marketing. Like they'll tag. And so as you build that foundation, look for other champions, look for other people that are going to help you win, and let them do some of the heavy work with you as well.
I love that. And I think that's one of it's like, planting, right? You throw the seeds out there with lot of goodwill and content that's relevant to the audience. And eventually, it's a couple of months later, you start seeing small things sprout out. Hey, I've been watching you for a year and a half and been on every call that I've seen you do. I just never said anything, but I wanted to reach out today and just buy everything all at once, right? Because they've studied everything about you by then, right? So these are things that used to happen back in the day, to be honest, and it was like mind blowing because you're like you can't really attribute this type of traffic easily when it comes to personal branding, but it raises all tides. Like for example, here at High Level we do 5, 6 different educational segments, right? We have our 5-day challenge, we have our 3-day workshops that are massive, we have the podcasting that we do, we do these master classes, we do lunch and learns with our certified program panelists and certified directory people there. We also do town hall meetings, all this content that we put out there. What it does is really raise the tides for all the entire ecosystem, all the affiliates, ourselves as well, paid ads across the board, all function so much better when you have so much content out there through education that's relevant. Adam, take us home. You talked about the 7 steps. Can you review those 7 steps and also maybe talk about the snapshot on what all includes for those that are might be jumping into a trial?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, Paulson, thanks for having me on. This has been awesome. I always enjoy chatting with you. And I think a lot of
Of
people,
course.
even if they just take one, I always tell people, even if you just take one or two nuggets away from this, one or two simple things and go start to implement this stuff, you are going to see a drastic change. Maybe not right away, as we talked about before, but at some point, really over probably the next 90 days, even if it's just, hey, I'm showing up so much better personally. I'm doing so many, more things, and I'm holding myself accountable to what I'm trying to push myself towards here in the future. So, just a quick recap on those 7 steps. The first part is identifying who your ideal client is. Second step after that is consistency in social media posting. So, for example, I post twice a day on Facebook, once a day on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And then we do a couple of YouTube videos every single week. We launch a new podcast every single Thursday, and I've done that for over 125 weeks. The third step is to provide value first and sell second. Again, if you don't have authority and you just expect people to buy from you because you're showing up and you're talking and saying, buy my stuff versus, hey, here's a bunch of value and then buy my stuff, those are two completely different scenarios. Step number 4 is positioning yourself differently than the competition. Again, there's hundreds of thousands of digital marketers that are out there. Because you're at one agency versus another, most people are looking at the individual, the salesperson, the owner, the CEO of that agency versus agency versus agency. Then number 5 is building that know, like, and trust. So once you've built the know, like, and trust, then people are more likely to refer you, more likely to buy from you, and more likely to do it without having to have some like cold sales pitch or spamming strategy and things like that, which is number 6. So if you're spamming at all right now, stop doing it. I know you may have had success, or somebody that you watched on YouTube or you bought some class or whatever said, hey, do this strategy. I'm not saying to get rid of it right now. What I'm saying is to focus more on the content strategy, focus more on building that personal brand to become the authority. And then the last part, which is really where all this stuff ties together with Go High Levels, automate your sales process and automate your entire personal branding process using Go High Level. So not only can you produce content easier with the social media scheduler, but you can also manage your different pipelines. If you have different offers, if there's different stages that people are in, which of course there's always going to be in the agency space, make sure that you do that and leverage the amazing software that GHL is. So you can double your business without having to drastically make yourself work that much harder. It's already going to be hard doing the content, but don't make it that much harder by not automating and taking full advantage of Go High Level.
I love that. Adam, before we close out, can you talk about Builders of Authority and the community that you have, some of the programs? I get marketers and digital citizens asking me about what all is out there. What are some good resources? So help us. I know you don't want to toot your own horn and you don't talk about your own self, but like, I kind of feel like I want to force the hand here for you to talk about your community and the programs you have. Help us understand what you got.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And so as I've learned about what we need to focus on and how I need to build my personal brand, like this is very niche down from a what is this and what isn't this. So this is personal branding for the entrepreneur that's looking to become the guy or gal in their industry towards their ideal clients. So if you're like, hey, I want to be known as the SEO person for dentists, this is what we teach inside of this community. So it's marketers, coaches, consultants, and then some service-based business owners as well. But we have our group mastermind, which is kind of our flagship program. You can check that out at buildauthority.co. And basically what we do there is we have 2 calls every single week. So we have Q&A on Monday, and then we have a specific training on Wednesdays. And then you get access to a course, you get access to 2 one-to-one accountability calls with my executive assistant every single month. And then we also have a private Facebook community as well. So we throw in a ton of valuable information, a ton of valuable assets into that. And everybody I've talked to that's been in part of the program, that have been in part of other programs, are like, this is just different because we're not focused on just like business as a whole. Now, we do talk about some business stuff. We do talk about mindset. We talk about everything holistically, but our goal is to help you push forward with personal branding specific stuff. We also have a free Facebook group. So if you just type in Builders of Authority on Facebook, you can go join that free community as well. I always post daily content in there too and do some trainings as well.
I love that. Snapshot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
tell us about the snapshot that you might be providing or
Yep. You want to
making
share the
available.
QR code to that, or what's the best way to do
What I can do is grab the QR code from you and throw it into our customer-facing Google Drive so everyone can access it thereafter.
Awesome.
But help us understand what is included in the snapshot, like what is in the automations and stuff like that. What benefits do they get out of it if they jump into a trial?
Absolutely. So the way I kind of generalize this snapshot is this is an event snapshot. This is the event snapshot we use for our in-person events. We're repurposing and doing it for some of our webinars that we're doing as well. So if you do in-person events, or if you do virtual events, or if you just do like a one-off webinar, this snapshot is going to help you tie all of this stuff together. And if you're not doing any one of those 3 things right now, I highly encourage you to put a plan in place in order to be able to do that. And you have the blueprint that we've used to sell over $30,000 worth of stuff. We threw 2 events. We literally made 10 grand on one of them and broke even on the other one. And we got in a bunch of sponsorships as well. And everybody that I'm talking to right now that are throwing their first events this year, literally, whether it's virtual or it's been in person, or like, Adam, nobody's doing that. And so part of the reason why I believe like we were able to do this is because Go High Level made it so easy for us to sell tickets. I didn't have to go and send a bunch of stuff out. I didn't have to use a third party, but we had such an incredible sponsorship package that we put together of not just someone speaking at the event, but all the different social media shout outs, all the different things that were incorporated literally through just simply using Go High Level. So in there, you're going to get our funnel, which has our homepage. It has the order forms where we had the 2 different ticket options. So we did general admission versus VIP. It has the confirmation that ties everything together. And then we made specific affiliate links for our speakers and for our sponsors. And so you'll see a link to be able to see how we set that up. But that helped us not just reward the people that were helping us do more tickets, sales and things like that, but it made it so simple and easy because we were able to track which page it came from. Not just to say, hey, here's a checkout or a coupon code or anything like that. And then the next biggest aspect, which is one that we learned the second time around, we had to go through throwing an event the first time, which everybody has to, usually learn the hard way, but we had different pipelines. So we had the actual event itself. We had the outreach that we were doing beforehand to make sure that we were just like, if somebody said, hey, I'm interested, or I'm kind of interested, to be able to go follow up. So there's the cold outreach, there's the interested, there's the ticket purchased for general admission, the ticket person purchased for VIP, and then not interested. And then there's some automations at the end of it, but basically a week after the event, us sending out a calendar link to be able to have everybody rebook on our calendar. So that way we could talk to them about Builders of Authority or anything else that we were doing.
I love it. So those of you that just tuned in, we appreciate you spending some time with us. What we did was do a full-on masterclass with Adam McChesney here on the 7 steps to a business launch using authoritative content and personal branding. And Adam, built a multiple seven-figure business, and he has several businesses in general. He's a serial entrepreneur, and I hope you got some nuggets out of this. If you are watching this from far, maybe on the fence about high level for whatever reason, would love to have you join our family, jump into the trial. And if you do jump into the trial, you get the snapshots and pre-built automations and all of that through Adam as well. But either way, thanks for watching. We appreciate your time. Bye for now.